Good afternoon. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is hereby called to order for its regularly scheduled meeting of October 23rd, 2024. My name is Tim Rainey. I'm chairman of the board. Mr. Jeffrey Penzis serves as secretary of the board. Mr. Penzis, may I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Bruce.
Present.
Mr. Campbell.
Present.
Mr. Claybrook.
Here.
Mr. Love.
Present.
And Chair Rainey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, the Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is the oldest appointed governmental body in Memphis and Shelby County. We were established in 1925. The board hears appeals from the administration of the zoning ordinance, requests for variance from the zoning ordinance, and other requests articulated by local zoning laws adopted pursuant to the enabling legislation. The 8 members of the board are appointed, 4 by the mayor of Memphis and 4 by the mayor of Shelby County, with confirmation by the Memphis City Council or Shelby County Board of Commissioners. We serve without remuneration. This time, I'd like to swear in the staff. You may remain seated. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, thank you. May I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting?
So moved.
All right, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Mr. Secretary, please provide us a secretary's report, if there is one this month, and then explain the procedure for today's meeting.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. As for the Secretary's report, there are no announcements this afternoon. The procedure for this meeting will be as follows. I will introduce each case as listed on the agenda. Copies of the agenda can be found on the front podium. For each case, the planner with the Division of Planning and Development will give a presentation. After the conclusion of the staff presentation, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present his or her case. After the applicant's presentation, those speakers in support will have a total of 5 minutes, then those speakers in opposition will have a total of 10 minutes, and finally the applicant will have 2 minutes to provide rebuttal. These times do not include time for questions from and answers to members of the board. The chairman may provide additional time provided both sides are given an equal amount of additional time. All parties who wish to provide testimony to the board will be sworn in by the chairman. If a member of the audience wishes to provide testimony in support of or in opposition to a particular case on today's agenda, he or she will need to fill out a speaker's card for the record. Speaker's cards are available at the front podium. Once filled out, speaker's cards can be submitted to any DPD staff member at the left podium. We do not need speakers' cards from the applicants since their names are already part of the record. After all parties have been heard, the board will close the public hearing, make a motion, and then deliberate on the case. If the applicant or any speaker would like to be heard after the conclusion of the public hearing, or if a board member wishes to hear additional testimony from any party, a 2/3 vote is required to reopen the public hearing, pursuant to the board's rules of procedure. Please note that once the public hearing is reopened, both the applicant and opposition will be allowed to provide additional testimony and/or rebuttal. All motions by this board will be made in the affirmative. The private acts governing the board require the affirmative vote of at least 5 members to approve an application regardless of the number of board members present. The board may also vote to hold an application for a period not to exceed 3 months with the consent of the applicant or 1 month without the consent of the applicant. All section numbers we refer to come from the Memphis and Shelby County Unified Development Code, or the UDC, which was adopted by the Memphis City Council and Shelby County Board of Commissioners in August of 2010 and became effective on January 1st, 2011. I will introduce the entire UDC and make it part of today's record, thus dispensing with the reading of individual sections. The board is vested with the power to act on these cases before us today under the provisions of Chapter 9.22 of the UDC. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all applicants have been notified of this hearing, and all notice requirements have been fulfilled as required by the UDC.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. If you'll let the record show that Ms. Scurlock is with us now. At this point, the board will establish a consent agenda. To establish the consent agenda, the Secretary will call out each eligible case. If any member of the audience, staff, or board member objects to a case being placed on the consent agenda, he or she should do so by a show of hands when the Secretary reads that case. Once the consent agenda is established, the board will vote on all cases placed on the consent agenda as a whole, will not hold individual public hearings on those cases. Mr. Secretary, which items on our agenda are eligible to place on consent this month?
Item number 1, BOA 2024-38 at 1523 Kansas Street as a hold for 1 month. Item number 2, BOA 2024-78 at 309 North McLean Boulevard as a hold for 1 month. Item number 3, BOA 2024-86 at 3573 Sharp Avenue as a hold for 1 month. Item number 4, BOA 2024-88 at 3588 New Horn Lake Road as a hold for 1 month. Item number 5, BOA 2024-91 at 9701 Tracy Road as a hold for 1 month. Item number 6, BOA 2024-92 at 3384 Thomas Street as a hold for 1 month. Item number 9, BOA 2024-95 at 3697 Oakley Avenue as approval with conditions. Item number 10, BOA 2024-99 at 190 Chelsea Avenue as a hold for 1 month. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Okay, so if we could get a motion from the board to approve the consent agenda, which would be numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as holds, 9 as approval with conditions, and 10 as a hold.
So moved.
Second.
All right, being moved in second, I'm going to remind you that before voting on the consent agenda, he or she affirms that he or she has read the staff report and is in full agreement with the conditions. Mr. Secretary, may I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Bruce,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook,
Yes.
Mr. Love, Ms. Scurlock,
Yes.
and Chair Rainey.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, so the consent agenda has been approved. So if you had any of those cases, except for number 9, which was approved, all the rest have been held. And we're going to hear our first case on our actual agenda today. Mr. Secretary, if you'll call that for us.
Item number 7, BOA 2024-93 at 540 South Front Street.
Okay. Is the applicant here? And then is there opposition to this case? No opposition. Okay, so we're here to talk about, why don't you give us a brief staff report on it, and then we'll talk about the conditions they want to talk about, if you can kind of just bring us up to speed.
Good afternoon, Nicholas Wardrop with the Division of Planning and Development. This is actually 2 requests in front of you as BOA 2024-93. This is an application by Malco Theaters at 940 South Front Street. The 2 requests are 1, a variance from the gate queuing requirements, and 2, an appeal of our interpretation of the streetscape requirements, and I'll get into that. So here is a location map. We're downtown South Main area. Here's the site aerial. Most folks are probably familiar with this site. It's the Malco Powerhouse Theater. It's also used for the Memphis Farmers Market. Here are some site photos from Google Maps showing the areas that are proposed to be gated, which require a variance to be gated. And again, I'll get into that. And here are photos taken by code enforcement on July 23rd. And if you've been by there, you know that these posts are still up today. The fence was partially installed unpermitted, and a stop work order was issued. Here's a site plan. So the reason they're here today is because the UDC requires that all gates be along a collector street, which front is, be at least 40 feet from the right of way. And the intent of that is so that a car waiting to be admitted through the gate wouldn't have to wait in the right of way. So here you can see their site plan. They're planning to put 2 gates on the 2 curb cuts here alongside a fence along front. So the pink stars here show the locations of the gates. So as I stated, there's 2 requests here. One is a variance from the queuing depth requirements, and another is an appeal of our interpretation of the streetscape requirements. We're recommending approval with conditions, as noted in your staff report on the first one, but rejection of the second item. So regarding the first item, you can see here highlighted in pink, this is the queuing depth requirement that this site is subject to. Gates, according to the UDC, must be at least 40 feet back from the right-of-way. However, these gates won't be regularly opening and closing, so it doesn't seem like there's a good reason to strictly enforce that in this case, because if the gates will only ever, be open for a long period of time and then close, and there won't be any queuing. There doesn't seem to be a good reason to require queuing depth. So we are recommending approval with conditions on this one. Secondly, and this is the question that I believe the applicant would like to discuss, is an appeal of our interpretation of the streetscape standards. So as I showed in these code enforcement photos, the fence is currently partially installed right up against the back of the sidewalk. We interpret the streetscape standards in the UDC as prohibiting this, and let me get into that. So there's no written statement in the UDC where it says, quote, fences must be behind the landscaping. However, it seems reasonable to assume that that was the intent of the requirements. So parking lots are required to install an appropriate streetscape plate, right? That is item 455D1A. And those streetscape plates are regulated by these graphics. So streetscape plate type S10 would be the relevant one. And you can see in this graphic that a decorative wall is shown to be behind the landscaping, but between the parking lot and the landscaping. It seems reasonable to believe that the intent of this was that a fence would be judged by the same regulations as a decorative wall. Secondly, fences are also required to have a break every 100 feet. And you can see the relevant language here. It says the maximum length of continuous unbroken and uninterrupted fence abutting a public right-of-way shall be 100 feet. So there must be a break in fence every 100 feet. Break shall be provided through the use of columns, landscape areas, that's the important part, transparent sections, and a change of material. The proposed fence triggers this requirements in two different sections. There's two individual sections of 100 feet or more. And so it doesn't seem intended that the landscaping being behind the fence would count as a break in that fence. So here I've got my fence here. Imagine it's 100 feet long. The UDC would require a break. And so I plant a shrub, and that would be a break, right? I don't think it's the intent, and we don't officially think that it's the intent of the UDC that this would count as a break in the landscape, in the fence. So with that, we recommend approval with conditions of the variance subject to these conditions, which I'm happy to discuss further. That concludes my presentation.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? All right, if the applicant will come forward. Afternoon.
Hi, I'm Christine Donhart, 6800 Poplar Avenue, Suite 101. I have my client Donald Terry with Malco here, and I just wanted to ask...
Let me swear you in. Are y'all both going to talk, or just you?
Just me.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Nicholas, for the presentation. We just wanted to talk about that one situation with the fence because we believe that the elevation change does create a security issue. So I just wanted to go through a couple quick pictures. If you could, next slide. Malco's been here 100 years, and this particular spot has a $10 million investment. Next slide. These are the safety initiatives they've undertaken. They've gone cashless. They have on-site guards, cameras in and out, and they've reduced their theater hours. Next slide, please. They have constant car thefts. The criminals pull up on the street and then walk across the grass strip, break the windows, steal the cars. This particular location has a 25% decline in revenue this year alone. Next slide, please. Since we applied, they've added 17 bullet holes to their building. Next slide, please. And this is the fence they'd like to put up. Next slide, please. This is directly west of Malco. You can see it's in fitting with the neighborhood, the dog park and the townhomes have fences along the back of the sidewalk. Next slide, please. Directly north is the same situation. Next slide, please. So this is the elevation change that we believe is a slight problem. It's about 2-foot drop. Next slide, please. This is what it's a Photoshop of what it would look like if we added the fence on the back of the sidewalk. Next slide, please. And you can see if we did put the fence behind the landscape, people could basically look over the fence, and you would not be as secure. You could maybe hop over it, put a plank over, and hop over it, which is why we are proposing to put it behind the sidewalk. Next slide, please. These are the gates that we're going to be replacing. Instead of the cattle gates, they'll look more like the fence. Next slide, please. And then this part will remain open, and they'll have the guard just watching this one, mostly this one spot in the future. Next slide, please. And this is our site plan, which you've seen. Do you have any questions?
Y'all gonna put the signs back on the new gates, you're gonna put those same signs back on there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good. Go ahead, Aaron.
What is this setback that you're showing for the new gate openings?
Well, Nicholas suggested we set them back a little bit further. That is about 20 feet.
Okay, it's less than 40 though, obviously.
It's not 40.
Okay.
40 would be to the edge of that canopy, I think.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And if I can butt in quickly, it's showing 17 feet here. I believe that's the dimension you were looking for.
Thank you. All right, any other? Guess what we probably need, if anybody has any questions specifically about the fence too. Greg?
Just a quick question about the fence and the breaks in the fence. On this illustration, I guess that's, I don't know, the distance between the columns or however you're breaking that fence up. Do you have an illustration of what that is?
This is schematic, so they're just called, they're posts.
But you will have posts there?
Mm-hmm.
Are they, do you know if they're 4x4, like a typical chain link, or is it something substantial?
It's a square aluminum black
Probably a
post.
2x2.
He had a photo in the staff report that showed them kind of already established in that spot.
They're not excessively decorative. I mean, they're posts, but not
Right,
a big post.
yeah. Right, yeah. I'd like to hear from OPD. I know that part of the language as described in UDC about site-proof fencing and borders, they usually, or what's recommended in the UDC is that be broken up with like brick columns or something that just kind of breaks that plane up a little bit. Do you all see that 2x2 piece of iron as satisfying that intent?
No, the landscaping would. That's the point I was trying to make.
Yeah. Well, just let me say this. I definitely understand Malco's intent to secure their customers and their belongings. But the thing that I'm thinking about, this is our downtown. The other properties that you showed, I think that are to the south of this site, those fences are 4 foot. Where how tall is this one?
This is 6 foot.
6 foot.
The ones across from in front of the apartments are about 4 feet.
Yeah. So that to me would be the difference in comparing this fence to those fences.
The dog park is 6 feet tall, chain link.
Okay.
And the ones to the north are 6 feet.
Okay. I see what you're trying to do, and I'm with you wholeheartedly. But the thing that I caution on is I think when we go full blown on fencing, the perception is exactly what I think you all are trying to defend, you know, that this isn't a safe place, that there needs to be an excessive amount of security. And I know you need it, and your clients and your customers deserve it, but I'd like to see us address the issue without, I guess, overdoing it, if that makes sense. Because I just think if you have everything barred in, that sends a signal. This is downtown. It's probably one of the more robust neighborhoods from an economic development perspective and from a tourism perspective that we have. And I just think we ought to be careful with that landscape. There is such a presence that Malco has downtown. And I just think we should really think about how we implement what I think y'all are trying to do. I hope that made sense. I might not have said that very well, but thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I got a question. Is the bigger in you all's eyes, which problem is bigger? Is it the 100 foot uninterrupted portion, or is it the landscaping happening behind the fence? Like
We would say the landscaping.
the landscaping? Yeah. Okay. Would, just throwing it out there, would an option be to break up the 100 foot band with something outside of landscaping? Meaning if they wanted to do some type of decorative brick column, the substitute landscaping being that divider.
Yes, absolutely. So something that would meet this definition, I mean, we would be more supportive of, but also it would meet the code.
So I guess what I was getting at is that is a potential option they can do, and that'll be somewhat kind of a receptive solution if they were to do some type of brick column or to break up that 100 foot span. And then landscaping would really be part of that necessity.
So that would satisfy this section of the code. It would not satisfy the requirement of the streetscape plate, these graphics. So that is the one issue with that.
Okay, I'm with you. Can you go back to that previous slide? I was trying to, okay, yeah. Parking buffer, sure.
Would Malco be willing to put some brick columns in, just to make it a little more decorative?
We believe that would be cost prohibitive.
Because what's your span? I mean, I guess that uninterrupted span was 147 on one side.
141
141.
and 127.
But yeah, you probably couldn't just put one. You have to probably put them at
Like 4 almost.
yeah.
I'm going to let Donald speak to that. Is that
Yeah.
okay? Okay.
And if you'll give your name and address for the record, I'll swear you in.
Sure. Donald Terry, 1312 Concert Street.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
One of the other factors that's not being mentioned about putting it on the other side of the landscaping is the fact that many cars, if you'll see in that, there's direct parking up against that. Even if you put in wheel curbs, in our history, that doesn't protect it. People have a tendency to overcompensate, pull up, especially if they're backing in. They're going to end up hitting this fence, which is going to be a constant damaged. It's going to be leaning. It's going to be an eyesore. And that's one thing, I'm director of operations, and I don't like to ever create something I'm going to have to try and maintain for the next 10, 15, 20 years on a monthly the parking lot gets very busy. So any type of pushing it onto the other side. The other thing is, and Christine's right, you can just directly, it almost looks like you don't even have a fence. We looked at that. So without even raising it to a much higher level, which we didn't want to do, which I think I agree with y'all, it may make it look even more intrusive if it was even taller, is to have it on that side of the fence. Now, one thing we did do, and of course apologizing here, is we did talk to the DMC ahead of time. When we were building the building, we went through them 100%, talked to people there, and they said they didn't have any problems with it, didn't know that we had to have working with West Memphis Fence. We didn't, but as soon as we were told, we stopped. It's been sitting there just like it is until we could have this meeting. We immediately talked to the Reeves firm and said, okay, well, we're going to have to go a different route. But any type of putting it on the other side of the landscaping, it's dramatically lower. Plus it being dark at night, even though we have LED lighting, and that berm, people aren't going to see it. They're going to back into it, especially if you can set a wheel stop for the front wheels, but your back wheels are going to be completely different on a car. So anybody that's going to back into it, they're going to damage their car and they're going to damage the fence. And I just wanted to mention that while we're all talking about it. So we're just trying to protect both so that it's up. And it is really just like what's in the area. The other, whether it's a 4 foot or I don't know how the chain link got there personally between you and me, but I mean, the dog park has a chain link, and good for them if that's what it looks like, but it's not characteristic of the neighborhood, I think, at all. But all the other ones really look very, very similar, whether it's a 4 foot or 6 foot, and it's pretty much where we're at.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Terry? Any other questions of the applicant or staff? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, if we could get a motion to approve BOA 2024-93 as conditioned by staff.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I think it's valid points on both sides. The more I thought about the concrete, the more I thought about the decorative columns, the more expensive it really started. It started to get. My first thought was just put one, then I realized, well, architecturally they'll look weird. And then it's like one at the corners, but then you still got to put a one in the middle to break up the span. So that's 3 on each side. So you just went up 6 columns. So, but I think an easy solution would be columns, and that would be a nice mid-ground, but that would be pricey. I definitely understand what they're saying about if that fence was removed to the back side of the sidewalk. If you're dropping 2 feet, I mean, you basically you lose the importance of a 6 foot fence. I was trying to find those properties on this. Okay, there we go. This is the 4th. Where's the dog park at? Is it further? It's a little further down. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say, so if they did move the fence to the back, adjusted to the parking like we want, it could be 8 feet tall. And then at least from the street, it would still maintain the same height as 6 feet from look.
That solves that problem, and I guess the whole thing with the cart with the wheel stop is just, I guess it's just, you just got to deal with people not driving properly, I guess. But you are fine with going with you are allowance of an 8 foot
Yeah,
structure.
the UDC would allow it.
Okay.
So we're saying up to 8, or at least up to 8 feet, right?
Yes.
They've already bought a fence.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. That's the part that
There's pieces of fence already sitting there.
Okay.
So it's, I don't know if you can return a fence. I mean, I'm sure that some of those sections are just plug and play a little bit, but we are having to use a little bit of, we are where we are.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
I just think we're trying, we're designing on the floor right now. I just think that there's got to be some other options that. Malcolm was looking for to protect her. If we keep on doing that, it's not going in a good direction.
I mean, I think you got two parts of it. You got the perceptional part, which is fences create barriers. But then I think you got the reality, which is my car is parked in there and I want it to be protected, which is a reality. So unfortunately, that's where we are with, I mean, I hate it. I wish we can remain fully open everywhere we go, but that's
That's what I'm saying. I
yeah.
think right now we're trying to make a decision that's going to have an impact. I mean, I think if we.
Can we just speak in the microphone?
Oh, you need to speak
Sorry.
in the mic, sorry. You turn it on.
Sorry about that. My point was, and I hope I'm probably being a little redundant, but I definitely understand what Malco is doing. I work in the city of Memphis, so I know some of the challenges that we have. I just think that I think that we should fully explore options before we push the button on this, because I mean it's going to be a visible impact to the entire downtown. And that's that property. I mean, it's big, and it's in our downtown, and I think it's going to have an impact. I just think we need to be really careful about how we do it. I've seen cases where something happens and businesses put a fence around everything, and you drive by, and it's stark, and you go, whoa. So again, I know and fully understand what Malco's doing and the challenge that they have, but I think we just need to be careful about the solution that we implement.
But to your point, I think that's going to be, from a perception standpoint, I think that's going to be the case regardless if they have it up against the sidewalk or if it's set back, 2 feet lower. That doesn't change the fact that they're going to put a fence up one way or the other. You know what I'm saying? So I think if it was a matter of you can do a fence or you're not going to do a fence, I think that would be relevant. But the fact that regardless of, we're talking about whether the fence is up against the street as opposed to behind the sidewalk. So I don't think that's going to change one way or the other based on what you were saying. I think we try to just make sure that whatever is up there is as attractive and least intrusive looking as possible.
Yeah. But how do we get there? Is it an 8-foot fence? Is it an 8-foot fence with brick columns? Is it the landscaping in the front, the landscaping in the back? Is it a change in the landscaping? I'm just saying, I think we got more options than two that we're kind of discussing now.
Yeah, if you're putting up a fence, there are some things, you've got a fence, but there's some things you can do to make the fence not look so prison-like. We want our downtown to look inviting. And I think, again, I'm not saying that we have to do this in this case, but with have the shrubbery, on the outside of the fence, if you put columns in, it makes it look better. But we can think about how do we satisfy the requirements and use those steps to make the fence look less intrusive, look more inviting. So I say putting the shrubbery outside the fence is a way to do it. Columns or something to break up the fence periodically. And I'm sure there are cheaper ways than just you say the brick columns are expensive. I'm sure there are cheaper ways to break it up, something you can put in there besides the most, that expensive brick column. Maybe there's something else you can put in to break it up, but let's break the fence up some kind of way to make it look better.
The applicant stepped forward. Does anybody would like to hear additional testimony? All right, so go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to say, we completely understand what you're talking about. It was never our thought that we would need to, when we built the building, back in 2017, 18, to have to, we don't ever think we want to do that. But when you've witnessed what we've witnessed over the past couple of years, and you've seen security guards directly who can't, what we're worried about is something else happening, and we don't want it. I get what you're saying about, and you too, about the reality is we feel an obligation for property, and not only our property, but the property of every guest that we have. We're very concerned about it, and with the way crime has gotten. And another thing happened, back in, like Christine said, in 2015, the police precinct moved, which was good for the Central Station area, but it also kind of left a little bit of a void there. And that's something we really have been working with the police department, but they've even recommended this type of result for us to do this, because they know what has helped us mostly was being able to monitor who's coming in and who's coming out, just like you would if they're going to the movie or something like that. But when you have people that can cross, who can park at the homes across the street and just simply run across and show you a gun or something like that, it makes it very difficult to do that. So that wasn't something we really ever saw ourselves wanting to do. And we really, it's a cost for us already on top of all the security that we're having to put in that location. And like I said, with already being down so much at that location in attendance and revenue, we want to do this for the safety of not only everybody that comes for that whole area. We want it to look nice too. We absolutely do. We don't want to ever, like I said about, we were never going to put a chain link or anything else up. And we want it to absolutely look nice, but we want to, number one, protect everybody coming to enjoy themselves, families, property, vehicles, and overall safety. And we felt like in talking with the police department, this was something that it was highly recommended that we get done. And that's why we've gone ahead and really tried to pursue this at our cost. We're not trying to look for anything else to subsidize it. This is 100% at our cost to try and help out with that. And then also with the farmers market, we have it all just like they like. We love having them there. They're a great asset, a great partner, and never going to try and impede on anything they want. But like I said, with the, talking over with the fence company, they see everything. They know how, if it can happen, it will happen. That's why having it on the backside there, they're like, it's going to get ran over every time you look at it. It's just going to be falling over. The thing about the landscaping is I understand, but it's going to be quite visible. I think if you could put up the picture that Christine, no, the one we brought, if you could. Most people are going to, people drive past. We're not trying to make anything look, these are really large trees. We've got the bushes. They're large. We're trying to protect. And there's another aspect of that. There is a lot of utility easement. I hate to tell you, downtown and midtown and all that, you talk about when they were out there marking for that 811, they marked it all up. So we're trying to be very careful about, we don't want to hit a line or anything like that. So that's why I'm kind of also going in those areas. But going against like I said, the curbs for a wheel stop for the front of a vehicle or a back of a vehicle is very different. So somebody with a truck, they'll back in, they're gonna hit it. Then they're gonna come to us and blame us or something, which they shouldn't, but it will happen. And plus it'll be damaged. But thank you again. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I had a quick question for staff, though.
Oh, okay.
Right across the street, because of their 4-foot fence, I realize that's a shorter fence, but is there a different requirement for landscape plats with regards to heights of the fence? Meaning, even though that one's 4 feet, is there a reason that that one does not follow the traditional landscaping in front of the fence?
Not per the UDC.
Okay.
Unclear how that one was built. I don't know about that development. It was a long time ago.
Gotcha. Okay.
Something else to break the fence.
And I understand the decorative aspect of wanting to break up the fence, but when you're talking about installing a brick column, the brick column has a column cap, and then the mortar joints, I'm in masonry, they take rope and they install the mortar joints and it helps them get over the fence. So it actually almost defeats the security. It's like, well, it's aesthetically pleasing, it defeats the security mechanism part of, right. So if you were to maybe break it up with maybe a wider dimension column that's smooth, that matches the material of the fence, you know, just just a wider diameter column, something that's smooth, which might be more economical than the brick. I don't know as far as the pricing on that. But I don't see necessarily all of the landscaping or the aesthetic stuff breaking up the fence is enhancing the security portion of the fence.
Any other thoughts?
Nothing new.
Yeah, I'd say, you know, as far as security goes, I mean, no matter what kind of fence you put up or what breaks you put in there, people can get over it. Just the presence of a fence is a deterrent. So just having a fence, I think, you know, serves security purposes as much as you can, as much as you need. You know, for me, it's how do we resolve this in a way that keeps our downtown looking, you know, attractive. You know, instead of kind of creating a precedence where everything's fenced in and locked up. You know, we want the property to be secure, but can we do it in a way that doesn't look as you know, imposing, threatening, uninviting to people? So I just think, you know, the appearance of the fence is important, more important than security. Well, I mean, security is important, but you got a fence. We got that taken care of. Let's figure out how to make it look, how to keep it from looking unattractive.
They could use something such as, a decorative finial, you know, or wider dimension columns, like I said, for breaking up, where it fits into the decorative aspects, the more modern too, to fit in too with the more modern aspect. Just trying to think more, just think creatively with design and having the fence.
I think maybe what we need to do, I don't want to do this, is hold this case, come back with some ideas on, I know y'all want the fence in the front, and I totally understand that, of breaking it up, whether it be the finial or something like that. I don't know, I don't want to say we'll approve it, but you got to do A, B, and C when those don't work, if that makes sense. Like if we said, okay, there's no good way for us to give you exact direction.
I mean, well, what we're looking for is really an approval, and I know that's bold to say, but we have the holidays coming up, and that is a concern for a company in our position. I mean, we're already into the end of October, and like I said, safety and security is our number one thought, and you got all of Thanksgiving and Christmas coming and then all that after. So any kind of hold really delays the safety and security that could be present at the location.
I'm looking at this fence across the street that's 4 feet, that's right up against the sidewalk.
Can you pull that up?
Honestly,
Go ahead.
I have no problem if the fence remains 6 feet where it is. Because as I look at that 4 foot one, because of the landscaping and the type of landscaping, I still get a sense of breakage there. I know it's not to the letter of the law, but the precedent from across the street and the precedent for the dog park, and because we're using wrought iron and not some material that creates privacy.
And it is made to match the other fences.
And that's just me personally, you know, I might be outvoted, but I personally think it's, you know, because of the safety factor and because it's downtown, because of the urgency of why I know this is needed, and we talk about a lot of options, there aren't tons of options for this. It's either the fence is up front or the fence is back, or you all drop to a 4 foot fence, which I don't think that's, help. So the breaks, I mean, it's only so many ways you can break a fence. The materiality, you can break it 1,000, but as far as breaking it, it's only so many ways that you're gonna do it. So that's my thoughts on it. Just the more I was going up and down the street just to kind of see everything, and because you got those mature trees, but I could be on the island, so.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it like it is. I'm just scared of him getting to know was the reason I even suggested that.
I'm with you as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're going back to straight discussion.
Thank you.
I'm the same, the way it is. I mean, I hate that we're in this situation. I agree with there's got to be a better way to keep downtown beautiful and more open, but that's a larger picture that we're all trying to solve. And this is an immediate need. I mean, the slides that they presented, you know, it's 20 whatever % and year over year decline revenue, bullet holes in the side of the wall. I mean, that's pretty eye-opening.
Yeah. Okay, any more comments before we vote?
Mr. Chairman, if I could jump in really quick, I will say too, this has a companion case at the Land Use Control Board in 2 weeks. So, you know, they need approval from the Land Use Control Board of the fence, period. So a third option could be to say, if approved by the Land Use Control Board, it could be against the sidewalk, and that's this language we have up here.
What's the, in the companion case before the LCB, what are they asking?
So they need to modify the special use permit associated with the farmer's market. So they need to basically add a fence to that site plan. And that's what's up in front of the Land Use Control Board here in a couple of weeks. And we have a condition in it now, which basically says that if the Land Use Control Board doesn't grant that, then the queuing variance will be null and void.
Okay. All right, I'd be okay with adding number 7. Let them figure it out. All right, is there any objection to adding number 7 to our motion? All right. Nope. All right, then, Mr. Secretary, will you give us a roll call, please?
Mr. Claybrook?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Bruce?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes.
Ms. Scurlock?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Selden?
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
And Chair Rainey?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you all. All right, Mr. Secretary, will you call our next case?
Item number 8, BOA 2024-80 at 2405 Elvis Presley Boulevard.
Okay. And I see the applicant's present. Was there any opposition on this one? Okay. All right, Ms. Christian, if you'll give us a synopsis of this case, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Chloe Christian, a staff planner with DPD, and I'm here presenting this case number BOA 2024-0080. This is a correspondence case to BOA 2022-0154, which was previously approved 2 years ago by this body. The applicant is here today, Ms. Evelyn Royston, and the location is 2405 Elvis Presley Boulevard. Here's a location map of the property and a vicinity map of the property. We sent out notices October 2nd and received no public comments. The property is Zone Commercial Mixed Use 3, and as I mentioned, BOA 2022-154. I'll also mention that there was a previous special use permit approved by Memphis City Council in 2019. There has been no activity on that permit, so it's now considered expired, but we felt it was worth mentioning as the conditions were pretty similar to the conditions that the BOA approved in 2022. On the land use map, the property is designated as commercial and surrounded by single family on the left-hand side and a mix of uses on the right. Here are some photos of the site. I want us to pay particular attention to the current fencing conditions as well as the landscaping conditions on the site, as those are what are being called into question today. You'll notice on the right the existing bollards and the kind of rough condition of the curb and gutter on the right-of-way. Here's some additional site photos. The photo on the right is the rear of the subject property from Whitmore Road. There's currently no gutter or sidewalk at all there. And on the left-hand side is additional view of the concrete apron, which is kind of closed off with no access to the site along Elvis Presley. Here's the site plan that was submitted by the applicant for this case. And I have a side-by-side comparison of the current site plan, which is on the right, and the previous site plan that was approved in 2022. As you can see, a pretty good amount of the proposed landscaping has been removed with this new plan. The only remaining landscaping are the 2 landscape islands along Elvis Presley, as well as the existing apron, fencing, and bollards are now proposed to remain, whereas with the previous case, they were proposed to modify those conditions and bring them up to our standards. I'll also note the fencing in the rear has been modified as well to maintain the existing chain link fence. And in this district, chain link fencing is actually not allowed per the UDC. So in conclusion, most of this I've already covered, but as we've stated, the Council of the City of Memphis, as well as this body, have approved a similar case for this site that would include some fencing, landscaping conditions that are not being provided with this current request. We find that this request cannot be supported. There haven't really been presented any practical difficulty or hardship that we would find considerate enough to justify removing all of the previously approved conditions. And the condition of the right-of-way along Elvis Presley and along Whitmore could definitely stand to be improved, and we find that this would be an opportunity to have that happen. So with all of that said, we recommend rejection. However, if this body does decide to approve, we have an additional condition that would require a streetscape buffer to be installed along the right-of-way on Elvis Presley and Whitmore, type S14, as well as remaining or keeping the conditions that were approved with the previous BOA approval. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
So, Ms. Christian, if we approve with your conditions, does that pretty much put us where the original, like our 2-year-old site plan was?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions before we move to that? If the applicant will come forward and state name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Evelyn Royston, 2809 Kirby Parkway, 38119.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and share with us.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chairman Rainey and the board members. This current existing structure and site was built in 1969. And this site appears to have been used for automotive services in some capacity for most of its existence. The owner, Ebony Borrow Fast Lane Towing, also known as Beyond Auto, is an existing auto repair garage that was previously approved for for motor vehicle sales in 2019 under case number SUP 19-31. Site improvements and economic reasons, the applicant never converted the site to vehicle sales. The applicant later submitted an application for BOA 22-0154 requesting a variance from section 2.5.2 of the UDC Unified Code to allow an impound lot in a commercial mixed-use 3 district, which is permitted with the SUP permit as an accessory use to current use of property. Unfortunately, the site plan that was submitted with this application mirrors the site plan that was submitted per the SUP case 19-31. The owner's current application, correspondent application, is to request modifications or deviation to the NOD conditions, items 1 through 7, that was approved in that case. And there are currently 2 curb cuts, as you can see, along 2 curb aprons along Elvis Presley that provide ingress and egress to the site. The speed limit on Elvis Presley is 40 miles per hour and is considered a major with tourist traffic and heavy commuters. Immediate median ingress and accessibility to property sites are essential for safety and as well as traffic congestions in these areas, as most of the sites along this section from I-240 at Brooks have immediate median access. The current site plan shown, which is the current one, shows provisions and deviations to the notice of disposition, Board 220154. The existing chain link is, can we get those, the notice of, please, thank you.
These photos?
The notice of dispositions, I'm sorry.
I'll have to, sorry, one second.
While she's getting that, the improvements are listed 1 through 7 under the notice of dispositions, and the modifications per the current site we were requesting, existing chain link fence to be repaired and barbed wire will be removed. The requester, she hadn't got it up there, they wanted the existing fence removed and a landscaping plate faced in front. And our request is to keep the existing fence there, remove the barbed wire fence, and put the landscaping plate behind the fence. And reasons for that is because those businesses along Elvis Presley that have complied to landscaping requirements, they're all botched. The people throw garbage in there. They pull them up the shrubs. So for security reasons, we're asking that we place that landscape plate behind the fence. And also, number 2, well, that kind of falls on them. Fencing along the street remain with landscaping behind for upkeep and security. Okay, and if you follow our provisions with theirs, then you can kind of see what our requests are. Fencing along, tree C shown in the landscaping island and electronic manual operated double gated ingress fence. They were requesting tree C along Elvis Presley, and we're requesting that we provide tree street in the islands at the entrance gate along Elvis Presley. And that on number 4, landscaping be irrigated, we're requesting that we provide a manual irrigation system since the landscaping plate will be on the inside. There are currently 2 curb inlets with sidewalks, approximately 125 feet along Elvis Presley from Whitmore. The request was that they would close off one of the inlets closer to Whitmore so that they would get that 100 feet turning space for cars going north on Elvis Presley to be able to turn left on Elvis Presley without having to share, I guess, in that turn, vehicles trying to access the site property. So they have provided fencing and bullions to prevent any ingress, egress at either one of those inlets. So there are no, and there are no ingress or inlets along Whitmore Avenue at all. So we are requesting that the landscaping plate requested along Whitmore Avenue, we will provide a chain link fence there with no barbed wire. We will remove the barbed wire, and parking is going to be required. The owners have met all the state requirements per this application for a impound lot. Their problem right now, and they are providing road services, they just cannot bring any vehicles on the lot because they are not required to store any they're not to have any storage on the lot until a certificate of occupancy is required. And so what we're asking with these provisions or deviations, if the board cannot see fit to make provisions for all of their requests, that also you would consider a temporary certificate of occupancy for maybe 1 year so that the applicants can continue to use their road services and also at that time would be able to bring cars onto the lot for pound storage. So that is our request, and we are asking you for a temporary CO for 1 year so that they can regain their financial stability to do whatever improvements that are required. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions of the applicant?
Let me make sure I'm clear. So the changes that staff has proposed, you're saying that maybe a year from now you'll be able to do. It's not that you're rejecting them. You just want some time to get in a better financial situation before you can do them. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is accurate. Along with some of the changes, we are trying to get, deviations on landscaping plates, those kind of. We are requesting that we can get revisions on those.
Okay.
And also with that, whatever provisions are made, we are asking for that temporary.
Okay.
I think I need a better understanding of what I'm lost as to what you're exactly not wanting to do that they're wanting you to do and what you are doing. Do you mind going over that one more time, like just showing?
Okay. They're asking that the chain link fence be removed. We're asking to keep the existing chain link fence and remove the barbed wire. They're asking that a landscaping plate with tree seed is provided along the frontage of Elvis Presley. We're asking that we'll provide that landscaping plate, but tree seed normally goes in front of the plate. We're asking to put it behind the plate, behind the landscaping plate. We're also asking that they provide manual irrigation rather than, and also there are 2 curb inlets along Elvis Presley. One of the curbs in the request was asked to be relocated further south, and they have put up bullards instead so that there will be no ingress or egress from those inlets. And my guess for the provisions for the curb inlets there at Whitmore is so that they won't be turning within that 100 feet requirement at a intersection, where they have to turn there at Whitmore. The south curb line of Whitmore. And let's see, what other?
Hold on that one real quick. Can we pull up a map so I can look at the curb inlets? But I'm looking at one that just has one, like on both of them. So I just want to make sure I'm on the same page. Maps too.
I believe it was referring to there's a curb cut around this area.
There are two, one about 100 feet from Whitmore, and then the other one probably is about 20 feet from.
Gotcha.
Yes, that's better, you can get a better view of where the two inlets are in Whitmore, and also,
I'm going to pull it up on Google Street View so that we can see it better.
Yeah, looks like there was actually two.
And then there's a apron of some sort here.
yes.
Here.
Gotcha, okay.
And OPD concern was that cars would be turning in that first inlet there right at Whitmore, so the bullets were put there to prevent ingress onto the site, as well as egress out onto Elvis Presley as well.
You're saying the bollards basically makes that impossible?
Yes, sir.
So you're fine with the one usable entrance that you're using? You
Right, yes,
basically
sir.
just, at this point, don't want to do the curb and gutter it would take to delete those, even though you don't plan to use them?
Yes, sir, that is
Okay.
the request, yes.
That helps, thank you. All right, and let me go back, I'm going to pull open the,
And the current site plans show a gated, wrought iron gated entrance there instead, and also with two landscaping islands on each side of that gated entrance with the tree seed.
Well, keeping the chain link fence in your mind and taking off the barbed wire, is that something that you're thinking is a temporary thing for until something more permanent can be done, or are you thinking that's the permanent fix?
Well, to remove the barbed wire is the most important, I think the safest element they're looking at. I would recommend repairs to the chain link fence and that it be maintained and kept, aesthetically pleasing along Elvis Presley. And in the future, maybe if when the business is doing better, they can maybe along Elvis Presley include the wrought iron all the way across the front. But right now, we're just requesting to do it at as a gated entrance.
what about number 8, the accessible curb ramp? Or wait, what I'm looking at your conditions, Chloe.
Oh, number 8 under,
Yeah, right up, that she has up here now, under the recommendation.
and our submittal for that was that there are no ingress or egress on Whitmore Avenue, and Whitmore Avenue does not have any residential homes within 300 feet of that intersection. It is all vacant lots. And they would like to keep the chain link fence alongside Whitmore for security purposes, especially impounding cars on the property.
Yeah, I mean, basically, they don't want to do any curb and gutter or, anything sidewalk related is what I get from that. Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
Chairman Rainey, the owner is here and would like to introduce herself, if that is okay with the
Yeah,
board.
if I can swear her in real quick.
Good afternoon. My name is Ebony Borum. Address 2405 Everest Presley Boulevard.
Okay, and you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I sure do.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to let you all know that me and my husband has occupied that space at 2405 for the past 7 years now. We do business there. At first, we sold cars and did car services, but now we transferred to towing due to economic change after COVID. That many people were not buying cars and cars were higher in the auctions. So we transferred to towing, which has been good, but things have been tight due to us needing to be able to do things like get on a city rotation and be able to tow vehicles for the city of Memphis. That's why I'm here today, trying to acquire those privileges. And like I said, that everything has been tight. So in order for us to make any changes or do anything, we would need to be able to move forward with this process. This is meaning a lot to me. I've been seeking approval for this for the past 3 years, and I have put a lot of money and time in this. And it is a privilege to be here in front of you all today, and I would just like to thank you all for having me.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions? None? Okay. All right, I imagine I want to discuss this. So if we could get a motion to approve BOA 2024-80 as conditioned by staff. Approve.
Second.
Okay. Anybody want to go first? No one does, yeah.
This is in line with, our typical cases of, what's best for the neighborhood. Obviously, what's consistent with what's already out there. I mean, so many things to look at. Sometimes I think there's a such thing as over-improving. But it's kind of hard to think like that because every project that happens is like a start in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really look at what somebody else has done, maybe not the right way down the street, because that's kind of what when I keep going up and down the street trying to find what has been the standard of what's been done. So I don't know, it's tough. I think some of the conditions I think I'm fine with some of those conditions as far as modifications of them, but I do think some of them have merit. Just trying to figure out which ones.
My question on the original BOA in 2022, when we,
Why didn't I get done like that?
when we approved it then, what happened, I guess, is my question.
Like, why did it not get built?
To this, I mean, we went through it, I thought we did anyway, extensively then. I do see, quite a bit of modifications going on, but my question becomes, what happened in 22 and we're back here in 24 on the same property?
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's just my issue with it.
Yeah, I mean, they said economic conditions wouldn't allow them to make the improvements, is I think what the answer was.
Well, I understood them say that it's not that they are opposed to the improvements the staff recommended. It's, they just like to buy some time to get in a better economic position. So whatever we decide today, we could decide something on a temporary basis, something that stands for a year or put some time limit on it. And, with the understanding that they will come back and try to implement those recommendations at some point in the future when hopefully they'll be in a better position.
But we've had 2 years since the first time we approved this. And we we've had 2 years to work with OPD to say, hey, I see we agreed, sitting in that meeting, that you approved us with this. Certain islands we can't do, or we're finding some difficulty, right, creating a difficulty in implementing the approved case before. I'm just having an issue with, we approved it, we gave it a layout, I think we gave it conditions, and then here we are 2 years out, and we want to modify it. I don't know. That's just me. I'm still working in my mind what happened.
Yeah, I think certain conditions, just because of the type of building this is, I think they're kind of, in my mind, like, you gotta do them. Like, the landscape frontage, I think I would want landscape frontage there just because, I mean, the type of industry that is towing, is cars, you might not know what type of car it is. And plus it's a chain link fence, you know, as opposed to being a wrought iron fence where if it's left visible, it's still a nice wrought iron fence. Well, so there are some elements that I think I would have thought would have been the basis of that one being implemented, just because it's kind of the meat of what needed to be done. So I wasn't here in 22.
Hey, for staff, let's say we approved it with all of the staff conditions. You know, it's not like, we all know that's not gonna be there tomorrow. It takes time. Is there a certain amount of time that's supposed to take before they get cited for not doing that?
Well, so if they were operating, essentially you have 2 years to do this, and you shouldn't be operating before that. And I believe their problem right now is they can't get the CO because we won't issue the CO because they're not meeting the board's conditions. And that's why they were talking about a temporary CO or something.
But back to Mr. Chairman's point, if we approve it as condition, we're going back pretty much to the 22 approved.
If you approved it, yes, it would be the exact same site plan as before. Like condition 1 is just stating what is already on that other site plan.
And then and I know you just said this, I'm gonna repeat it, so they would have to then do all those things and then they get their certificate of occupancy.
Correct.
And what they're saying is like, we don't have money to do it because we can't operate because we don't have a certificate of occupancy.
Correct, specifically the towing part. I
Right.
think they operate as, I think she said vehicle service right now, or repair.
Right.
I will be open to approving it as staff has shown it, and giving a very, 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 very reduced time slot to implement it. So not like a year. I'm talking like 30 days or 60 days or something that, because otherwise we're going back to what you said. You're just going back to something that was done 2 years ago.
So on that, let's say we did more than that. And like, let's say we said one of the conditions was all things must be implemented within 1 year. Like, I think that's kind of what they asked for, like us come back. How would, is there such thing as a temporary CO?
Well, they're asking to operate before doing any of the conditions. So if we just said, right now it's 2 years, but they won't get a CO until they complete the conditions.
Yeah.
So even if we change it to 60 days or 1 year,
I still won't get
until you meet these, we won't issue the CO for the impound lot.
I think even with the temporary, there's no such thing as a temporary.
I know there's a temporary.
What? Our attorney says not that he knows of.
Would say that again, Jeffrey?
Our attorney says not that he knows of.
Okay.
So we're, essentially they're asking us something that we
Can't
do,
provide.
yeah, can't provide.
Okay. All right, well then I would,
Okay, I see. Yeah.
I would approve this as conditioned by staff. Is there any other discussion?
This question of staff, There have been cases where construction code has issued a temporary use and occupancy permit. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that is an option.
So, well, what does the UDC say? There are certain standards for temporary use, but the problem is here that they need the use variance. So like they wouldn't issue a temporary CO to someone who needed a use variance.
Right, so we're saying that the use is not permitted by right. I get it.
Okay.
I get it.
All right, any other discussion? All right, Mr. Penzis, you'll give us a roll call, please.
Ms. Skurlock.
So we're voting affirmative
For the staff.
to
The
have
staff.
the staff conditions remain
That would be correct.
with no time, they didn't incorporate any time limitations.
Correct.
But they can go back to the original business model that was there, correct? Like,
Yeah,
they
stated they were
can't
currently
operate
operating, I
repairs.
think it was either vehicle service or repair, I can't remember. They would still be able to do that, it's just they couldn't start the impound lot until they met your condition.
We've not completely ripped the carpet out.
They have other uses of the
Yeah,
property.
that's, but, okay.
They have other uses of the property.
So we, okay, I'm just making sure, I'm just trying to get my mind around it. So, I guess it wouldn't make sense for us to give, to put a time limit on, give them some period of time to get this done, because they gotta get this done
That's what it
first
is.
before they
Yeah.
get the,
Yeah.
Right.
the use, okay, I see, okay.
Yeah, and as of right now, it's just the standard 2 years. They have 2 years to do your approval, and if they do that, meet these conditions, they could then.
Within the next 2 years, okay.
If they went over 2 years again, they could always just completely follow the code, right?
And go back to the original use. Yeah.
Well, not for the use. Sorry, what's it?
Oh, they're always gonna need a use permit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because right
gotcha.
now, the
Okay,
use
I'm
is
with you.
not, it was a use variance.
Okay, I'm with you, okay.
And so we're voting we're voting for the application with staff's recommendation,
Yes,
staff's
sir.
conditions. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
All right. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Ms. Gerlach.
I'll vote, I'm gonna vote no.
Mr. Love.
Mr. Who?
Love.
Yes.
And tell me again, so we're voting
So
the affirmative.
if you vote yes, it's essentially just considered a 2-year time extension of the original case.
Basically,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, of the original, okay, then, I'm sorry. May
Okay,
I-
Ms. Gerlach.
Okay. Yes, okay,
Mr. Love.
yeah.
Mr. Claybrook.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Bruce.
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Selden.
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC are being met. It will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
And Chair Rainey.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, you've been approved as conditioned by staff. Thank you. All right, Mr. Penzis, will you call our last case?
Yes. Item number 11, BOA 2024-100 at 1491 Union Avenue.
Okay. I see the applicants here. I know we have some opposition on this one. So it looks like Ms. Christian is up again. If you'll give us a staff report, please.
Chloe Christian with DPD presenting case BOA 2024-100. The applicant is Kimbrough Partners, represented by David Bray, who's here with us today, and the location is 1491 Union Avenue, which is the Kimbrough Apartments on Union. And this is a variance from subsection 2.71 B and G to allow accessory parking for the apartment in a district that does not permit the principal use. Here is a location map and vicinity map of the property. As I said, these are the Kimbrough apartment towers on Union Avenue. We sent out 173 notices on October 1st, and I did not receive any public letters for this case. The property is split zone CMU 3 and R6, and it's also in the Central Gardens Historic District. It's designated as multifamily on the land use map and surrounded by a mix of uses, predominantly single family to the south. Here are some photos of the site. As you can see, the apartment tower is in the foreground, and the proposed parking lot would be located at this kind of landscaped grass area. Additional photos, the photo on the left is the view from Union and Kimbrough of the tower itself, and the photo to the right is a further back view of the green area. Here's a survey submitted by the applicant of the entire property. The parking lot is proposed to be located in the area highlighted in orange. I'll also note that there is a two-story building to the northeast corner here that includes a parking garage, and the actual apartment itself is to the west of that. Here's this site plan and landscape plan that was submitted by the applicant. Originally, the landscaping was not proposed to screen the entire parking lot, but we worked with the applicant to produce a site plan that provided a significant increase to the landscaping as well as a change in the type of shrub that was presented. So we've required a type B shrub, which is actually can be up to 9 feet tall to increase the screening of the parking lot from the surrounding residential areas. So in conclusion, the apartment building was built in the 1930s and does not meet the current parking requirements of the UDC. So staff supports this request to provide some additional parking and alleviate that concern for residents of the building. So this would produce a total of 146 parking spaces. It would still be underparked, but it would be a significant increase from what's currently being provided. As I said earlier, we did work with the applicant to get to a more significant landscape buffer of the parking lot, considering that there are some residential properties very nearby. And with those changes made, we find that the granting of this variance will not cause detriment to the public good or impair the intent and purpose of the UDC or be injurious to the neighborhood or general welfare. So we've recommended approval with the following conditions. Since this is in a historic district, they will be required to receive a COA pending this body's approval. And they would also need to file for an ASPR subject to the review of the Division of Planning and Development. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Christian, you said at the beginning when you were describing the surrounding area that there was a parking garage close by. But is that available to people that live there?
I would defer to the applicant about that, but there is a garage in this.
To the east? Like behind that commercial area?
It's in this.
Yeah, okay, that's right. Thank you.
I do know, I did the case back in there. Parking does provide parking for this. In addition to, I think there are technically some offices on the second floor, so it provides parking for both this apartment building and that office. That office is part of the same variance case, or retail shops.
Okay, the applicant will come forward. If you'll give your name and address for the record.
David Bray with Bray Firm, 2950 Stage Plaza, North Bartlett.
All right, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Bray.
Okay, so I'll start off with the question about the parking garage. So yes, there is a parking garage connected to the retail center, which on this site map is not really shown. It would be, okay, there it is, the two-story brick and block that she's circling with the cursor right there. And the residential apartments have had an agreement for years with that. That agreement has expired. Had a little bit of conversation with some of the folks here in opposition. I've since talked with the manager of the property. It's expired. They said they were going to lock out the residents a month ago. They're aware that this case is progressing. They're trying to work that out. The site is underparked. The site has been underparked probably since cars became a little more popular. As the staff report noted, this was built in 1938. There was no parking requirement, and that was great, but now they need parking. Specifically to our site, they have 96 units, and to meet the UDC, they would need 96 parking spaces. If you guys approve this request to add 34 spaces, they would basically be at 65. So they still need to work on additional parking spaces, but this alleviates about a third of their issue that they have, and that's why we're here before you. We are in agreement with the conditions on the staff report. Happy to work with staff on the additional landscaping that we've added. All the landscaping that's out there now we're trying to preserve. There's a couple of trees on the site that would be eliminated, but the majority of them and all of the ones around the perimeter we're going to retain. We know this has to go to landmarks for a certificate of appropriateness, and then we'll have to go through the ASPR process. One of the questions that was asked by the opposition had to do with site lighting. Yes, we intend to have site lighting. Part of that ASPR process, we'll have to have a photometric plan and meet all the requirements. And we had a discussion on that 2 days ago. We're going to direct everything interior. It's going to be low profile. It's a matter of safety to put that lighting in there, but we don't want to impact the surrounding residents, which is why we have this designed like it is. I'm sure you guys saw in the staff report, a similar request was made back in 1978. I don't think any of you guys were on the board at that time, but that request had another connection to Kimbrough, and I believe in one variation it also had a connection to Eastmoreland. So we've tried to avoid that in this application and keep everything with the same drive apron that they have today, the same entrance, the same exit. This would just create an additional area of parking once people are on the site. So I'd be happy to answer any of your questions and reserve the rest of my time for after the opposition speaks.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Bray right now? Hey, Ms. Christian, if you could help me just real quick and explain, this is because it's split zoned is the issue, right? Because I mean, I see where like to allow accessory parking for an apartment building in a district does not permit the principal. Is the apartment building not permitted?
Yes.
In that lower part?
So the apartment building is located in the CMU3 zoning, which does allow for apartments, but the parking lot would be located in the section of the parcel that's zoned for single family. So the variance was required since the parking lot is for a use that's not allowed in that location, if that makes sense.
It does. It does.
And Mr. Chairman, roughly that zoning line runs along the north line of the residential, which...
Right, that's what it looked like. Do you know how long the southern portion, was it always part of what the apartment kind of developed, or there used to be houses across?
I don't recall there being houses across here. No, I can't speak to 1938.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been in a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. Tim, there was a pool there at one point.
There was a pool there?
Yeah, there was a pool there. I don't know how long ago. I just remember it being there.
Did you go to pool parties there?
In the neighborhood, but yeah. I was a little young for a pool party there.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Bray right now?
Mr. Bray, can you refresh, and I think you said it, the number of parking spaces that were allowed from the retail company, how many are used by the apartment? Do you recall?
I'm not sure what their agreement was, but they did have an agreement. At this time, that agreement is no longer in effect. But since October 1st, when it expired, they're allowing it to continue, and they're watching this case to see what happens. Their contention is that they need more parking for their retail area, and therefore they would like to get out of that agreement. They haven't said that they completely would, Like I said, this gets us closer. So now, possibly with the tower needing fewer parking spaces, it might be something that gets very close.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions before we move to the opposition? Okay, so we're going to move to the opposition. Where the opposition, we have several people that give them cards. We get 10 minutes for everybody, and so I can call names, or y'all may have elected a spokesperson.
Did we have, there was one card in support.
Oh yeah, and one card in support. So I have the support card here. Does the supporter want to come and talk at this point and use any of the? It's. I don't know. That's a good question for staff to tell me the answer to.
Well, our rules say it's supposed to be the applicant, then support, and then opposition, and then we go back to rebuttal by the applicant, so she should speak now.
Yeah, I think you'd have to talk now. Yeah. And then how much time do we have for?
Here, 6:45.
Okay, so we have 6:45, but any time you're using goes into, that would be added to his rebuttal.
Okay, I'm not going to take very much time at all.
Okay, if you'll give your name and address for the record.
Lauren Whiff, 563 South McLean, 38104.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Lauren Whiff. I am with Central Gardens Landmarks, and we actually met and discussed this project in September. After much deliberation, and actually one of our members talking to Kimbrough Towers, we realized the need for parking for them. And because we've just come from y'all with another case where we didn't want multifamily in the middle of our neighborhood, we thought to ourselves, this is a situation of where there is this beautiful historic apartment building that we want to support being able to have multifamily. So we thought we really wanted to be able to work with them to figure out how to give them parking and also relieve parking from Eastmoreland. We were worried that without the parking next door, that there would be a lot of parking going up and down the street that would probably make Eastmoreland, a little bit less desirable as a residential area. So we supported it with the BOA's recommendations, and just as long as they made sure to keep nice evergreen shrubbery and plants outside of the fence to be able to secure the parking lot to where it wasn't an eyesore, we were in support of.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Whiff? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. And so now we're going to move to opposition. Come on down. And if you'll give your name and address for the record.
Sure. I'm Patty Joyner Cutbirth at 1475 Eastmoreland.
Okay. And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Joyner.
Okay. I've been a resident of Memphis for 65 years. I've lived in Midtown in this home for 6 years at 1475 Eastmoreland. I'm also on the Central Gardens Homeowners Association board, but unfortunately, no one asked me for my opinion or to be a part of that meeting. Just wanted to point that out. Tim and I, my husband, we're both retired. We live directly across from the property. So in reality, the green space is our front yard. And I know that this is not a place for comedy, but we like to tease each other that we're the Kravitz. And you may be too young to watch Bewitched, but he calls me Gladys, and I'll call him Abner. So we're very aware of the comings and the goings and the needs of this property because, again, it's our front yard. I'm here to voice opposition to the plan or to ask for more time to gather information and to gather more input from our immediate neighbors. I do have a few concerns on page 1 of your staff report, and this young lady did point this out. It requests 34 additional spots for the UDC requirements to total 146, and the need says it's 172. However, more accurately, at the present day, there are 24 spaces around the building, and they're requesting 34, which would total 58. So our concern as a neighborhood is if there are 96 apartments currently, and they're at 80% occupancy, in the future, if this is for the future, what's next? Because 34 plus 24 does not fulfill the 146 or the 172 that's required for these type of buildings. So we are in fear that in the future, to accommodate a full capacity apartment building, that they would want a garage. That's one of our fears. Rarely, as the Kravitz of the neighborhood, do we see more than 40 cars in question at the current time. In the last 5 years, there have been less and less cars parked on the street. In front of our house alone, there used to be bumper to bumper to bumper to bumper cars. Why is that? Because the residents are charged $50 a month to park in that garage currently. What we would like to know is, and it's unclear, and Mr. Bray could not answer this question before the meeting, is for these 34 spots, are residents going to be charged $50 for that? If they're losing the garage and they're being charged $34 for uncovered parking, then theoretically they will park on the street or wherever they can in order to not pay the price. Because most of the residents that we've spoken to say we can't afford it on top of our rent that we already pay. And that's unclear in the present plan, and the current management doesn't know the answer to that question either. Again, where are the cars? Where are the needs? Because on any given day, there's just not the cars that are included in these numbers there for the residents that currently live there. In the plan, there's no mention of security cameras, fences, gates, lighting, drainage, or trash. The trash currently exists on the other side of the commercial space. Theoretically now, if there's two different owners and they're dividing up their properties and not having the agreements that they used to have, the trash is going to have to come to this side on the Kimbrough Towers property. In these plans, you see no plans for that. So as residents who directly look onto the property and enjoy the property, we'd like to see those plans before anything is approved. Because the trash that I did include in my email to you, the photo has mattresses and all kinds of trash. It's not maintained properly. We'd like to be assured that if it does move over to Kimbrough Towers, that it's maintained in a proper fashion. The green space is a huge problem. It's enjoyed by all the residents there. The other day, there was a birthday party. I sent you a picture of that. With the blow-ups and all that, there won't be that enjoyment by the residents there. And we sort of enjoy seeing all that, the cookouts and the picnics and the soccer games. Trees, what's the plan to preserve the trees? If you dig out a berm, theoretically, and I'm not an arborist, how are you going to dig near the roots of giant 80-year-old trees and preserve those trees? We don't have a clear answer to that. We haven't seen a report from an arborist. One more thing, I know I've talked a lot. There are no additional entrance and exit plans in this plan. And you're adding spaces, and the current entrance to the commercial garage is the exit from Kimbrough Towers now. So you're adding more cars into that space, but you're not increasing an exit. And so my prediction is emergency vehicles or accidents are gonna be compromised because it's a very narrow exit from that property as it exists right now. And there's only one way out in the plan and in the current configuration as it is now. As a neighborhood, we're just asking for more time to gather information and to gather support or opposition to the plan. But I think there's just so many unanswered questions that we're not comfortable not being in opposition at this time. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have any questions of me?
Thank you, Ms. Joyner. Are there any questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I got more people. We got 343. If you'll give your name and address first.
Timothy R. Cuthbert, 1475 East Moreland.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Chairman Rainey, thank you so much. Members of the board, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to speak about this. I've lived at that address 32 years this coming Halloween. And for 32 years, all right, this proposal has been brought up in the past, and it has been voted down. I was at the last one in 2020. It was voted down. The cars, as Patty said, used to be bumper to bumper. They would be parked down Kimbrough to Eastmoreland, down Eastmoreland, back up Eastmoreland, and then they had the garage, all right? That's what, I did not have a problem with that. However, with what's getting ready to go down now, there's going to be a total transformation of that northeast corner. That building's been there 85 years. To the best of my knowledge, that space has been there 85 years. And as the gentleman said before, there was cars then, and there's been cars the 32 years that I have lived there. And when I went around to the neighbors, many of them got their postcard, and they said, yeah, I saw that, I didn't check it out. So I started talking to the neighbors, had to canvass the block. And once you tell the neighbors what's getting ready to go down, a lot of them are not happy about this. Now, I understand. I want to just say this for the record. I love the Kimbrough Towers. I love that building. There's very few Art Deco buildings in Memphis, and I love that building. I was the lead docent at the past Central Gardens home tour in September in the Kimbrough Towers. I talked to approximately 100 people about how great this building is and how I love it. And I want to work with the new owner and whatever we can do. However, this parking lot, as the way it is crafted now, is not good for this. The berms they're talking about, they don't give you any idea about what the berms are going to be made of. Are they going to be dirt? Are they going to be turf? Is there going to be an irrigation system out there? Where's the water going once you dig this basin? It's an 85-year tract of land that has not been disturbed that I know of in 85 years, in at least the 32 years that I've been there. So, again, I would hope that you would take this under consideration. We were not informed about this meeting that Ms. Wolf spoke of just a moment ago. So just consider this. The cars are not there anymore. The dermatology building across the street allows them to park there at night until 7 o'clock in the morning, and then they have to go. They can park there all weekend on Saturday and Sundays and holidays. So, like I said, I love the building. I want to help whoever owns it to make this building successful. When the building is successful, we are all successful in this neighborhood. However, this proposed parking lot, hope y'all consider that. Okay. Thank y'all very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Are there any questions for the, I want to ask you a quick question. Sure. You said that they've talked about doing this several times and the plans have been voted down.
Yes.
Who was the ones that voted it down? Like, what group was that?
1978, I attended the one in 2020, and I'm guessing it was the Board of Adjustment, but I'm not sure. It was right. It was January of 2020.
Okay.
And they were seeking a variance, and then COVID hit. Okay. But I attended the meeting.
If I
Board of Adjustments, 1978.
I was not at that meeting.
I wasn't.
Right, the 1978 case was about this, and that was rejected. The case that was from January of 2020, it didn't have anything to do with this parking. That wasn't part of it, and it was approved. It was mainly about setbacks. Just, I think they said at the time to legitimize for insurance purposes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all very much. I appreciate your time.
All right. We got a little bit of bit of time left? We have 18 seconds left to whoever would like to fill that. We're good? Okay, thank you all. All right, we're gonna move back to the applicant. I think you have 7 minutes, is what was added, what's left for you, Mr. Bray, to address any of that.
I'm not going to use 7 minutes if I can, if I can avoid it. Just to address some of the concerns. There were questions about fencing. At this time, we're not showing any fencing. The existing parking is not gated off. That could change. That would go to landmarks as part of a certificate of appropriateness. So we'd have to show that at that time. Let me explain something about the berms, though. Can we go back to the street view, the one from Eastmoreland?
This one?
Maybe on the left or right, I mean, sorry.
Well, that one will work. We're talking about a berm. The existing property is elevated above the street. We're going to lower the parking area, so you're going to have a berm in effect. What's there along the road now will stay, and on that site plan we show a little bit of the grading. We show the existing contours, so we're sloping down from the other point of that. Now, we do have, there was some concern mentioned about the drainage. We will have an increase in impervious area. It's about 0.19 acres of increase, and we had a meeting Monday with the contractor and with the ownership group to discuss some options on that. It's going to be a bit of a challenge because there is no storm sewer in the site. And so we're going to have to figure out how to do that. We'll address that as part of the ASPR process. There's recommendations in the staff report for using that internal green area that we have for bioswale and to push some of the water into that area. We're in agreement with that. But we'll just have to determine what we can do. There was some concerns also in the staff report about the drainage. So we'll address that as we move forward with construction plans. Of course, that's all contingent upon this approval and then landmarks approval as we have to go through that process. The fencing and the lighting. The trash, I did talk to the ownership group about that in between meeting with the folks before the meeting and getting to this point here. The trash agreement is not changing. So the dumpsters are on the east end of the site by the retail building. They will continue to use those. That's not part of any agreement that's being changed at this time. And that's all of the notes that I had made. I heard what the opposition said about it. There used to be parking on the street. The parking on the street's gone away. They don't see that there's a problem. But part of that's been eliminated or alleviated, I guess, by the use of the parking garage. That goes away. We're going to go back to a problem, and that puts parking on the street. Parking on the street, I've lived in houses where parking on the street's a normal thing. But now, and you guys are seeing this, and Land Use Control Board is seeing this, everybody wants to be on a lot and off the street for obvious reasons. So we're trying to be ahead of that here as this agreement comes to an end and provide a place for those cars to go so that we're not at a point where we're overloading the adjacent streets with more parking. There was a mention of a parking garage. That's not been brought to me by the owners at all. I don't think that's financially feasible in this location, and I don't think this board would support a parking garage in the residential zone. So that's not something that we're looking at. So happy to answer any questions you have.
I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Based on your site plan, it looks like the new parking is pretty set back from the street, pretty high on the berm. Does that have any impact at all on those kind of mature trees, or would it be behind that, or would those have to be?
We're trying to stay off of that. So you see the larger trees are the ones that are there, and then you see the smaller trees that we're planting as supplemental. The closest tree really that we're getting to is the one that's in that extreme southwest corner. You see the row of shrubs in front of it, and you can see we've got a contour coming back in there. That contour is based on a 6-to-1 slope. So what we'd probably end up doing is tightening up that slope, or even maybe doing a little bit of a wall right there, so that we could avoid grading into that root zone. But that's all things that we would determine as we go forward with construction plans.
And those are just shrubs, right? Those little small.
The small ones in a tight little row are shrubs. The ones that say, I believe it's WH is those are trees along Kimbrough. I don't believe we have any additional trees along East Moreland, and then we have smaller trees interior to the site.
Are you all open to adding any additional mid-sized trees on the East Moreland side, just as a buffer screen in addition to the?
We don't have it right now. We've got those 3 existing trees to remain, and then we have the row of shrubs. But we can work with staff if additional trees were necessary to. They changed the tree. I believe that's Ms. Christian's favorite shrub now, which is what we changed it to. But we can add more trees as we work through the process.
Thank you.
I got a question for staff real quick. They would not be able to move like a trash area onto the site without revising the site plan, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If we could get a motion to approve BOA 2024-100 as conditioned by staff.
Approved.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I moved and seconded. Any discussion?
This case seems to be the epitome of why we're here. This is definitely a situation that's encumbered for the building, and two, like we've discussed in other cases, to have to rely on a different business to support an existing building is not what we're trying to set up to do. I think this is very proactive of the apartment complex to alleviate a long-standing problem that would support the neighborhood by getting the parking off the street, and definitely well landscaped. Yeah, it'll look different than before, but it supports the beautiful building that is a part of the neighborhood.
It's an elegant solution.
Yeah.
To not a great problem.
Yeah.
I think, from what I heard from the opposition, I'm not sure that they are necessarily opposed to it. It sounds like they want there to be more communication. They just want to be involved in the process and have a chance for some input. So I hope the applicant will consider that and try to give them that opportunity.
And this goes before landmarks or?
Correct.
Okay, so there's another opportunity too to work with landmarks for getting some input, neighborhood input in.
Yeah, I agree with the solution. I think particularly with the burn, it kind of creates sight lines that I don't even think visually you're going to see much difference if it's properly landscaped. And it's a problem that has to be fixed. I mean, unfortunately, this building was built when these codes didn't exist, but in 2024, you have to at least be closer to your parking capacity with this many apartments, and this is a step forward. It doesn't solve the problem completely, but it definitely beats street parking. So I'm, with the exception of just making sure landscaping is appropriate and creates the buffers that's needed, I think it's a solution that makes the most sense to me.
Any other thoughts before we vote?